go to the market panel and invest. So that might remind you from the beginning, we saw this manage market investment. So I'm going to click that, and we have a whole new screen here. So it shows that the current investment is 0 and the rate of return is 3%. Now, rate of return of what? Well, of the market. You can choose to invest cash. And there's this little bar chart down here. What is this about? It says, click this bar chart icon to view market rate of return history in a visual bar chart graph. Interesting. And there's not much to see currently. It's just 2 small bars that, by the way, another UI crime. These are unlabeled. But up here, it says that this shows the overall performance of the market the past 12 turns. Red indicates a decline in value, green an increase, and light blue a relative lack of change. So the market is a dynamic system in the game that will, hopefully, over the next 6 months, respond to events that happen across the simulated universe. At times, hopefully, respond to things that you do as well. Right now, it will have a sort of steady up and down pattern, and it will trend toward a positive gain. If I were to say, okay, maybe I want to invest 300, and no, I'll make it 320, and I'll click invest. And now it says that our current investment in the market is 320, and that's expected to earn a rate of return of 3%. We have 70 cash up here at the top, left in the city holdings. And now what do we do? Are we ready to advance to the next turn yet? We're ready to go to the next turn. So let's go to the next turn. And holy cow, it says we spent 431K. The population, however, is now 1. We generated 4 in tax revenue, but we spent 5. So we're actually quite negative since that first turn, but that's okay. We're at the very beginning still. Let's continue. And one thing about that turn summary is that it does not tell you the entire story from the aspect of the market. So the market is extremely important. You'll notice that we went from a 3% rate of return to a 7% rate of return, and the amount of money that I put in the previous turn has now grown to 341. Wow. That's pretty powerful. If any of you are familiar with compound interest, you know that when the market is doing well and you have money invested and you keep putting money in and you get a consistent positive return, that can mean that the money compounds to a higher and higher amount very, very powerfully in a multiplicative way, as opposed to just adding a little bit of money every turn. So in fact, your investments are so much more powerful in reality than what you can do with businesses, at least right now in this version of the game. So why would you build businesses then? Well, if you want, you can play the game without building any businesses. You can play only spending the bare minimum on expenses. And in fact, I may go in and sort of tweak this at some point, as long as I can communicate to the player what's going on. I might tweak this to say, well, maybe some of these, if you're by yourself, these don't matter, right? If that's the case, you're just living in this open field, essentially, and you're on your own, and you're just sort of a business tycoon at that point, investing in the market, managing your own affairs without anyone living in the city. You might then say, okay, well, why would I build businesses if I can just earn more money all the time in the market? And the answer is so that you can build a city. Not everything as a part of the systems in this game are meant to be incentivized or pushed after in some sort of a goal, right? The goals are yours to choose in many cases. There may be a number of things that I press onward in the next 6 months of development and sort of adjust, right? Which is, it might be the case that there might be some really powerful ways I allow you to generate income with businesses over the next 6 months. But even if I do, even that being so, it's important to understand that fun is of the priority, balance is secondary to that, and the other thing is that this is a game that has no combat, and that is part of the design goal, is to make this an interesting, engaging experience without combat. But you can see, just in the first 2 turns and through my explanation of the gameplay, that there is so much left to be done here. Because We have a business. We have some money invested in the market. We have expenses, but without much of a connection directly to systems, especially with no communication to the player. And we have 5 buildings without much of an explanation as to why the 5 different types, along with their prices and the amount they generate and how many workers can work there, why all that is important. Survival in and of itself is not really the point here. I would say the bigger point of the whole gameplay idea, the whole concept here, is the simulation itself. It is the world, the universe that you're interacting with itself. And there's a lot that can be put in here where that's the whole idea, is to add more and more ways that the player can engage with that and get feedback from that. But again, the number one mistake I made is including these details that are obscured from the player. First, let's do a checkup on everything. So to review, we have bare minimum expenses. Okay, that's good. The market, we can do a little bit more into there, I think. We'll keep around 49K. Actually, we'll sell off just one, make it an even 50, because why not? Again, this is generating 4K. That's interesting. But what else can we do, right? So 50K is not a lot. We're going to keep the majority invested in the market. We're going to run that 7% rate of return. We're going to see what we can get out of that. It looks like the market is on an upward trend. That's good. Let's go to the next turn. Okay, so now we've only lost 21, which really is probably just from putting that money into the market investment, right? Population still 1, tax revenue still 4, still losing 1. Okay, so we went from 50 down to 49. Interesting. Let's check on the market. Okay, growing to 384. How's it doing? Ooh, wow, the market is just flying upward. Let's see if we can get just a little bit more cash in there. So let's check on the market real quick, and then we're going to follow up with expenses. So we have 428 now. This is doing fantastic. I think we're going to stick with the current investment we have. We'll hang on to our cash for now. Still upward direction there in the market, although it looks like it's not gaining any more steam. Looks like it's flattening it out on the upward gain, but that's fine. Our investment's doing well. We have 37 cash. Getting kind of low on the cash, but we're going to go to the next turn. Market is just flying upward. I'm loving it. 10% rate of return. Doing very, very well. 35K, I think we'll manage. Let's go to the next turn right now. But you got to keep in mind, the market is doing fantastic at the moment. It will eventually come back down. It is the nature of the market. So we probably want to hang in there with our investment because that is doing super well. And that 10% is only going to continue growing. And it appears that the market is doing so well that we're actually generating additional income. Now, this still says 4K, and that's not accurate. So something is wrong with the update of this number because we went from generating 12 to generating 15. And why? Because the market is doing well. So you can see that the market is this example. The earliest idea, and this is like the best thing in the game, is the fact that this one system can affect everything else. It can affect how much you need to spend on different categories. It can affect how much income the businesses bring in. If you introduce the trade system, it can affect how many items you're able to produce, how much demand is on those items, with the prices of the items, and so on. So there's a lot of opportunity here to further involve the fully pure, dynamic aspect of the market system. And that's really like the big thing, right, is that purism. When the market directly has an effect on something else going on in the game, that is huge, right? Because you need to be able to basically do that and then make it apparent to the player. And then before you know it, once you have all of these pure systems causing effects on each other, you can show the player that. And then the player can intelligently respond in their own way to what's happening with those market forces or with those dynamic systems, right? That emergent gameplay that can happen with pure systems. But the systems right now are not pure. Because as you advance from turn to turn, you have events that are pre-scripted that can happen to you, and that's not very pure. That's contrived, right? The expenses, the fact that the monsters become more powerful, and you have to learn over time to increase your military spending from turn to turn, that's problematic. That's contrived. That's not a pure system. So that's really the key to everything, is we've got to make the systems pure. In other words, if this growth number is going upwards, then this income number needs to steadily climb. If this number goes downward and the market begins tanking, then similarly, this business needs to be affected by that, and this number should go down. It is similar in an action game to if you swing a sword and hit a thing, that sword should have a force applied, right? You don't randomly decide when you collide with something whether or not it actually hits it and applies a force. No, the pure system is you swing the sword, you hit something with the sword, okay, if you hit it, then a force is applied. And it should be a force consistent with however that sword works. If there's modifiers on the sword, if the player has like a fire or an ice upgrade, then that should affect the damage output. Or if for some reason the thing that you're hitting responds to fire and ice in a certain way, then okay, now you have that pure interaction going on. Maybe fire doesn't light something on fire. Maybe ice can't freeze a certain object, and so on. Next turn. Okay. Continue. Continue. Attempt defense against the monsters. City was saved from attack. Okay, how's the market doing? Oh my gosh, it's at the bottom here. However, this is kind of cool, isn't it? Look at that nice smooth line downward. That's fun. We want the market to behave a little more sporadically. So in the future versions of the game, you'll see work done on the market where, hopefully we'll get it kind of spiking sometimes. Other times it'll have a plunge and then recover and all those kinds of things. I don't want it to work exactly like the real world stock market or anything like that, because it's really meant to reflect more of the in-game economy between the different cities inside of the kingdom in the fictional universe. But we're going to put some more work into it to just add a little bit more dynamism, a little bit more sort of fun and unpredictable sort of things that you can respond to. But again, I promise that one of the things I'll focus on is if we do that, we will communicate to the player and we will make the systems pure.